guys, a lot of you expressed interest in getting your own hedgehog yesterday when you viewed my story. So today I'm going to talk about hedgehog care, what you need to know before you get one, and I'm going to also dispel some of the myths you may have heard. Anyway, one of the hedgehogs that you haven't seen much of lately is the dad. This is Peaky, and he is a full adult male hedgehog. And as you can see, he's considerably bigger than the babies. You can tell by just me trying to hold him in one hand. The first thing you need to know is about the caging, which is very important. They need to have a lot of space, so the bigger the cage, the better. In nature, in the wild, hedgehogs generally run up to 30 miles a day and swim just as much. It is also a good idea to get a wheel as well, so that they can run on it and get their proper exercise. And one of the things you might want to think about is that hedgehogs are mostly nocturnal creatures, so they're going to be using their wheels and running and doing their activity during the nighttime. Usually mine will run on the wheels about 3 o'clock in the morning is when they start and don't stop until sunrise. One of the questions, and I still get it asked all the time, it's the number one question, is do hedgehogs bite? And again, the answer to that is anything with teeth can bite. Although hedgehogs will not usually bite out of aggression. They usually bite if they're trying to see if something is edible. I also get asked if I have ever been bit by one of mine. And the answer is yes, I have. When I first obtained the two parents, both Misty and Peaky, each one of them bit me the first time that they were handled. But they only bit me once and then never again after that. And I'm pretty sure that that's because they realized that I wasn't edible. And if a hedgehog does in fact bite, their teeth are not strong enough to penetrate the skin, and it only feels like a little pinch. And as you can see, I've been holding Peaky through these snaps the entire time, and he has not made a single attempt to bite me. However, he does seem to be really, really excited to be outside of his cage, and is in a very playful mood. Another question I get is if they stink, and the answer to that is no, they do not stink. They actually have this very nice sweet smell to them. Well, the smell I'm smelling that's sweet is actually Johnson & Johnson's baby shampoo, and I'm going to show you how to give Peaky a sink bath later. Hedgehogs actually really like to be clean, and they do groom themselves, but because of their shape and their quills, it is sometimes hard for them to reach. To prevent from stinking too, proper cleanings of their cage are required, which I do usually on a monthly basis. And you want to make sure that you use paper bedding, not pine or cedar bedding. Cedar is bad for their respiratory system, and pine bedding goes bad in the course of a week and creates a terrible fly problem. Another question I generally get is, does it hurt to touch them? For me, no, but it was a little weird at first. They are spiky, and they do have quills. However, they only hurt if they go into defense mode. And it's not that bad of a feeling. The quills on their back feel like the bristles on a brush. If you could imagine petting the bristles on a brush, you could imagine. If you could imagine petting a brush, you could imagine petting a hedgehog. And you can see that he's very comfortable around me. And if you get a nice hedgehog that's been raised up right and used to humans and gets used to you and your scent, you're going to end up with a very nice hedgehog, just like this, who will probably not bite you. I put Peaky down so he could go play. He's very excited to be out of his cage, so I'm going to let him play for a while. So here is his 4-week-old daughter, Moonbeam. Anyway, what I get asked a lot is if the care is easy, and yes, it is. But there are certain things that you need to know. One of the most important things probably is the temperature that they need to be in. There are over 18 different breeds of hedgehogs, but the ones that are kept as pets are called African pygmy hedgehogs. And the African pygmies need to be kept in degrees that are 75 to 80 degrees at all times. It's fine if you take them out and play with them and observe them, but they need to go back to where they live at 75 to 80 degrees. If the temperature is too low, they can go into hibernation. And hibernation can be fatal for these little guys. Basically, they can curl up into a little ball and sleep until they die. I keep mine in the warmest room. I live on a second floor condominium, so the heat stays up here pretty well. Although I do have a light sometimes, just in case I think it's getting too cold. Also, hedgehogs are escape artists, so you're going to have to make sure that you observe them when you have them out playing. It's very hard to keep track of them if you have more than one out because they can be fast and quick and hide in small areas. To use these rat ball things that you can just put them in there and cover it up and then they run around on the floor in it. It's good for exercise and stimulation for them too. Peaky actually got too big for it and he doesn't like it too much, but Misty loves it and will run around all over the place in it. Another question that I get a lot is what do they eat? I just use a high protein cat food, but also that's not enough. Because hedgehogs are insectivores by nature, you also need to feed them insects. I usually give them mealworms as treats, and I will sometimes give them dried crickets as well, as just to make sure that they're getting it in. It is also a good idea to feed them vegetables and fruits. I usually take my hedgehogs out and try to hand feed them that, which they have grown accustomed to and seem to rather enjoy. However, if you try to feed them that in the cage, it will end up stinking. A question I don't get asked a lot, but I wish that people did, because this is the biggest complaint after somebody owns a hedgehog. Hedgehog poop! Just like any other pet owner, you're going to have to deal with it. Though there are claims that some hedgehogs can be litter trained, I have never successfully ever observed one that was actually litter trained. When a hedgehog runs on its wheel, that's when it's going to start pooping because it thinks it's leaving it behind them. Hedgehogs normally poop mostly when they run, or right after you wake them up to take them out of the cage. However, there's a plus side to this. As soon as they get all their poop out and get it all out of their system, they don't have to go again until you feed them again, or after you feed them. If you don't want to see what the poop looks like, tap through. It looks just like that. It's not really that big either, so it's easily cleanable. And also, it doesn't really stink. It only stinks if you smush it or if you give them wet food. At least that's from my personal experience. I don't feed them the wet cat food anymore unless they're babies that have to be weaned. I only feed them the dry cat food. Before I give Peaky his bath, here are some of the lies that people told me before I first got my hedgehogs. I was told that a hedgehog will learn to come when you call. False. They don't understand human language at all, and they don't socialize with humans. Although some hedgehogs are known to cuddle, and one of mine does, he doesn't do anything much more than cuddle me. But if you're looking for an affectionate pet that wants to see you all the time like a dog might, this might not be the right pet for you. I was told that hedgehogs don't bond with their owner. This is completely untrue in the traditional sense. Although hedgehogs do not seem to be very social with humans, they look at you as a jungle gym that must be explored. But the sense that they use the most is their smell, their sense of smell, so they will learn their owner's smell. And this is why it's not a good idea to rehome an adult hedgehog, because if you rehome an adult hedgehog that was already cared for by a previous owner, they may become grumpy and stressed out by all the new scents and surroundings, and it is very, very hard to re-socialize them in their new environment. All hedgehogs get along with each other is a big lie. Hedgehogs all have very different personalities, although a lot of similar characteristics. You may get one hedgehog that is just grumpy by nature all the time, while another one will be sweet as can be. I've never experienced it firsthand, but I have told that you should separate the boys because they tend to fight with each other. However, what I do know is that two females in the same cage can get along together very well, depending on their personalities. The temperament of a hedgehog is just as much to do with their genetics as it is to do with how they are raised. Last of all, you don't need to clean a hedgehog. That's another lie I was told. Hedgehogs are required to be bathed on a monthly basis. And bathing them isn't really much of a difficult process, which is what I'm going to show you next. They require sink baths. The things you will need to bathe a hedgehog is a toothbrush and tearless baby shampoo. When you fill the sink, just make sure it is slightly warm water. That's just due to comfort for the hedgehog. And all you need to do is squirt it right on the toothbrush and make sure you brush right on the quills. When you're done with that, you just want to make sure you get his belly too. You also want to make sure you brush right underneath his arms and legs, because that's where he's going to be running around and poop on the wheel. Their nails also have to be trimmed. I just use regular nail clippers. They know exactly what's going on when I do it. But I trimmed Peaky's nails recently, so he's not going to have to need it right now. One last thing I almost forgot is one of the myths is that dogs and cats might attack them. I have had my hedgehogs around 5 feral cats, and none of them have ever harmed them. They do tend to play with them a little bit, but generally hedgehogs get along with other animals. If a hedgehog feels threatened, it's going to ball up into its impenetrable ball of spikes. Anyway, I hope you learned something if you're interested in caring for one of these little guys. And if you have any questions, feel free to contact me. I'm happy to answer them.